Hello, friends. Do you ever find yourself stuck when talking about actions that happened in the past and continued for a while before something else happened? Well, you are not alone. Imagine you were living in Bengaluru and later in your life you moved to some other place. How would you say it to your friend? I had been living in Bengaluru or I had lived in Bengaluru. Which of these sentences are correct and why? Please message your answers in the comment and I will share my answer at the end. Welcome back to the channel. I am happy that in the world of tenses, we have completed 9 lessons. Now it's time for another interesting and advanced tense. So give your 100% focus here. Today we will learn about past perfect continuous tense. We will understand what it is, its structure in positive, negative, and question forms. Look at some common mistakes and share some pro tips. So, without further ado, let's get started. What is the past perfect continuous tense? The past perfect continuous tense is used to show that an action started in the past and continued up until another point in the past. It focuses on two things. Number one, duration of the action, and number two, continuous course of the action before a specific past time. Imagine a timeline where the left side represents the past, the middle represents the present, and the right side represents the future. The past perfect continuous tense describes actions that started in the distant past, continued for some time, and ended before another action in the more recent past. So there will be two past actions here. One past action will have been already completed before another past action. Here, the duration of the time is often mentioned. For example, Nihir had been living in Ahmedabad for 10 years before he moved to Mumbai. This means that Nihir started living in Ahmedabad 10 years ago and was still living there until he moved to Mumbai. When to use past perfect continuous tense? It is generally used to describe actions or situations that had been ongoing for a period of time before another action or point in the past. For example, she had been waiting for the bus for an hour when it finally arrived. Number two, to emphasize the duration or length of the time of the ongoing action before a specific point in the past. For example, they had been living in New York for 5 years before they moved to Los Angeles. And number three, to describe the cause of a past situation or condition. For example, he was tired because he had been running for quite a long time. So these are the three main usages of past perfect continuous tense. Now let's learn the magic formula for the past perfect continuous tense. The formula is subject plus had been plus verbs ing form. Let's take subjects I, you, we, they, he, she, and it. And base verbs eat, watch, and study. What will be its present participle form or ing form? Eating, watching, and studying. Now, let's do a match. I had been eating, you had been watching, we had been studying, they had been eating, he had been watching, she had been studying, it had been eating. Now, let's make the sentences negative. To make a sentence negative, add not after had. So the structure will become subject plus had not or hadn't plus been plus verbs ing form. So the sentence will become like this. I had been eating will convert to I had not been eating or I hadn't been eating. He had been watching will convert to he had not been watching. She had been studying will convert to she had not been studying. Now, can you convert these sentences into question forms? To turn a sentence into a question, use the structure had plus subject plus been plus verbs ing form. For example, had you been eating breakfast? Had he been watching the movie? Now, let's form WH question. These questions use question words like what, when, where, why, who, which, and how to ask for more specific information. The structure is WH plus had plus subject plus been plus verbs ing form. For example, where had you been traveling? What had she been doing? Let's practice now. I will give you a verb and you will make a sentence out of it. The verb is study. Make a sentence with I. I had been studying for the exam. Let's make it negative now. I had not been studying for the exam. Now turn it into a yes no form of question. Had I been studying for the exam? Let's turn it into a WH question. What had I been studying for the exam? So in this way, you can convert a sentence into different forms in past perfect continuous tense. Let's look into some of the common mistakes that we generally make while framing this type of sentence. Number one, mixing up past perfect and past perfect continuous tense. It is easy to confuse past perfect and past perfect continuous. But understanding the difference is a key to mastering English tenses. Let's look into a table to illustrate the difference. Number one is focus. The focus of past perfect tense is on completed action before another past action. For example, I had finished my homework, while the focus of past perfect continuous tense is on ongoing process or duration of an action before another past action. For example, I had been studying for the exam all afternoon. Number two, duration. Past perfect tense does not necessarily indicate the duration. For example, they had lived in this city, while past perfect continuous tense indicates the duration or length of the ongoing action. For example, they had been living in this city for 10 years. Number three, the main usage. The main usage of past perfect tense is to show completed actions with a connection to another past action. For example, I had cleaned the house before the guest arrived. While for past perfect continuous tense, the main usage is to showcase actions that were ongoing or recently completed before another past action. For example, I had been cleaning the house all morning before the guest arrived. Number two, mixing up past continuous and past perfect continuous. It is also easy to confuse past continuous and past perfect continuous tense. I will use the same table and showcase you the difference. So past continuous tense, the focus is on ongoing action at a specific moment in the past. For example, I was reading a book yesterday at 6 p.m., while the focus of past perfect continuous tense is on ongoing process or duration of the action before another past action. For example, I had been reading a book for 2 hours before dinner. Number two is of duration. Past continuous does not always indicate the duration of the action. For example, they were playing football, while past perfect continuous indicates the duration or length of the ongoing action. They had been playing football for an hour before it started raining. And number three, the main usage. The main usage of past continuous tense is to showcase actions happening at a particular time in the past. For example, she was cooking when the phone rang, while the past perfect continuous tense shows actions that were ongoing or recently completed before another past action. And here, the example could be she had been cooking for an hour when the phone rang. Remember, the past continuous tense describes actions that were happening at a particular moment in the past, while the past perfect continuous tense describes actions that were ongoing or recently completed before another past action. Some other common mistakes could be number three, forgetting been. So the sentence I had living here for 5 years before I moved is incorrect. The correct sentence will be I had been living here for 5 years before I moved. And number 4, wrong form of the auxiliary verb. For example, she had have been studying is incorrect. The correct sentence is she had been studying. So remember, auxiliary verb is had been. Now, let's look into some of the pro tips to master this tense. Number 1, use time expression. Use time expressions like before, after, for, and since to show the duration. For example, I had been studying for 3 hours before the break. She had been living here since 2010 before she moved. And number two, duration is the key. Remember, the past perfect continuous tense emphasizes the duration or continuous course of the action before another past event. For example, she had been working on the project for 3 months before she presented it to the class. In this sentence, had been working is the past perfect continuous tense. It emphasizes that the action of working on the project continued for a specific duration of 3 months before another past event occurred. Which was that past event? She presented it to the class. We now have a good understanding of the past perfect continuous tense. Let's sum up what we have learned with some practice sentences. She had cooking dinner for the guest. Is this sentence correct? This is incorrect. The correct sentence will be she had been cooking dinner for the guest. What will be its negative form? She had not been cooking dinner for the guest. What will be its question form? Had she been cooking dinner for the guest? What will be its WH question form? What had she been cooking dinner for the guest? So now we have learned all about past perfect continuous tense. We all know that practice makes us perfect. Let's test our knowledge by correcting the following sentences. Also write the negative and question forms. He had have been walking to the park. We had watching a movie before it started to rain. She had been studying for the exam. Pause the video, solve the exercise and message your answers in the comments. I am waiting for your reply. I hope you would have given the correct answer. And to know my answer, please check the description of the video. So now, let's solve the question that we looked at the start. Which of the following sentences is correct? I had been living in Bengaluru or I had lived in Bangalore. Both the sentences are grammatically correct but used in different contexts. Sentence 1, I had been living in Bengaluru is past perfect continuous tense. Here the main focus is of showing that the action was still happening before another action. So, if your friend asks you, how long had you been living in Bengaluru before you moved? Then you can reply, I had been living in Bengaluru for 10 years before I moved. This emphasizes that you were continuously living there up until you moved. This is past perfect continuous tense. And sentence 2, I had lived in Bengaluru is a past perfect tense. So here the focus is that the fact or experience of living in Bengaluru. So if your friend asks you, did you ever live in Bengaluru? How was your experience? Then you can reply, yes, I had lived in Bengaluru for 10 years before I moved. This states the fact or experience of living there for 10 years before you moved, and this is past perfect tense. I hope now you are clear on past perfect continuous tense. That's all in this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. We will see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.